the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Yes.
And so that it's important to understand that in these ventricles, you have a bundle of tissue known as the choroid plexus, C-H-R-O-I-D, choroid, C-H-O-R-O-I-D, choroid plexus, P-L-E-X-U-S, choroid plexus. These are bundles of tissue that create a living liquid known as the cerebrospinal fluid. Dr. Richard King says there's 13 times the amount of melanin in cerebrospinal fluid than there is in the blood of the circulatory system. And that melanin, housed in this clear, wonderful liquid known as cerebrospinal fluid, bathes our body from the brain straight through our nervous system. And what you have in neurons are nerve cells. You have the soma, which is known as the neuron body or the cell body. And then you have axons and you have dendrites. This is where the impulses are created that send messages through your nervous system.
Yes.
Your axons are responsible for sending impulses away from the brain, and your dendrites are responsible for bringing them towards your brain. And this relationship creates a higher order thinking skill that ascends the human spirit, human mind, and human body to levels where the gods reside. And the purer your thoughts, the purer your cerebrospinal fluid, the purer your ability to access this information is what the priests and priestesses of ancient Kemet were seeking when they studied in the temples and the perunks of the ancient world in Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. Lots of information we're covering. We're live here in the Remix with Dr. Kaba, speaking with us about all things melanin here this evening live in the Remix. We will be taking calls a little later in the show. I do want to give out that number now, 646-652-2711, as we continue here in the forum. Now, let's continue that conversation there. It's 2010. How can we begin to activate this to the level where we're conscious that it has been activating? There's lots of debates where some say it's already been activated when we're talking about your pineal gland. Others talk about how it could have been diluted to some degree, the calcification or different things that go on with it. Or there's even been cases where people believe that their pineal gland has been sort of removed from them for whatever reason. Can you speak to those?
Well, I would. I want to be careful how I say this because there are so many who I learn from as it relates to melanin, and I'm sure that when Dr. Richard King comes, that brother will lay it all out because, like I tell you, he's the one that brought me to my knowledge of melanin. But I would say that there's very little chance of it being removed. It's there. It's just buried in all of the nonsense that we have to go through. Yeah. You know, when you're spending your life struggling to get a job, to pay your rent, to put food on your table, to be the man you want to be or the woman you'd like to be, all of that gets in the way of you accessing information.
Yeah.
In a world where African folk were able to be who they were meant to be, didn't have to worry about things that human beings are meant to be, have to worry about today. You know, there are things that no matter how, if I want to use the word simple, carefree, very careful I want to say, but in many African nations where people live a life that is stress-free, they're able to be who they were born to be. And out of that comes a wonderful experience in life. What's happening in the Western world right now is probably the greatest curse that has ever hit mankind. The kind of lives that we are made to live right now, nobody was meant to live like this. Nobody should ever worry about where their next meal is coming from or having a house over, a roof over their head, a place to live. clothing on their back. There are fundamental principles that no human being should ever have to worry about. And when you're around people who have a vulgar display of materialism, and then the other side is a horrific display of a lack of basic essentials in life, there's something very wrong with that society. So I don't think that it is that you don't have the pineal gland. I believe that you must use it constantly, which I think our people are using it. It may not be used in the same way that it could be if we were free of a lot of this torture, but I do think that we access our pineal gland just surviving.
Oh. Right, so true, so true.
You know, I mean, our ancestors on the plantation, their pineal gland was at its optimum. I could imagine what their pineal gland looked like in order for them to survive, to come forward to another day. So that I think that we have it. One thing I recommend us do is to read books by African scholars that talk about melanin, because I've noticed that when I've read European American-based books, they will not tell you what it's about. Very, very few will ever really tell you what it's about. And even when I watch television and people talk about melanin, and they'll always make a point of telling African and African-American people. This doesn't mean, when they start focusing on the fact that peoples of European descent have to be particularly careful about, let's say, melanoma, which is skin cancer, they will always include to tell black folks. That doesn't mean that you can't get it. Well, quite frankly, it doesn't mean we can't get it, but it certainly means that Europeans are at risk of getting it far more than we are.
That's correct.
When they write their books, they never tell the truth about the truest essence of melanin. And I don't blame them, because they don't know the truest knowledge of melanin. They have no idea what the truest sense of melanin is. They don't understand the spiritual component of melanin. They have no idea. I've been in conversations with them, and the one thing that they will always try to make it seem like is like I'm out of my mind, like there's something wrong with me, because they can't handle a conversation that I could. And so most of the time I tell them I don't even want to talk to them about the spiritual manifestation. You can't even handle the physical manifestations of melanin. What makes me think you can handle the spiritual or the mental?
Right.
So that what becomes so important for us as a people is to access the kind of information from Dr. Richard King, the melanist.
So true.
We should get his book in our library. We should reach out to Sister Dr. Patricia Newton from Baltimore, Maryland, who has written on melanin. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, all of her papers, her DVDs, and her book, The ISIS Papers. We need to reach out to Dr. Jewel Pookrum in her book, Vitamins from A to Z. She has a chapter on melanin. We need to reach out to Dr. T.K. Moore of Morehouse College, where he talks about melanin in his book, The Science of Melanin, and Dark Matters, Dark Secrets, both of his books. We need to get that book from African American Images out of Chicago. The president is Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, and it's entitled Why Darkness Matters. And read the 4 essays by Dr. Edward Bynum, and by Dr. Richard King, by Dr. Ann Brown, and by Dr. T.K. Moore. 4 dynamite essays on melanin, focusing a lot on neuromelanin, but looking at melanin in general. We need to reach out to our scholars who have taught us about melanin. That's the first thing, because when you understand the science of melanin, then you can understand the mind of melanin and the spirit of melanin. So the first thing is to gain knowledge and wisdom and understanding.
Yes.
First thing we all should do, create a library in our homes on melanin.
Yes.
And then begin to do everything from meditation to private invocation, to reaching within, to purchase those types of books by Dr. Edward Bynum dealing with African consciousness. He has a fantastic book on African consciousness. Reach out to the work of Dr. Hunter Havlin Adams. I understand he's got a book coming out, if not already, on Ma'at. And Maulana Karenga. Dr. Karenga has a book on Ma'at. So these are the kinds of things that we can begin to do the moment folk are no longer listening to your radio show. This is the first thing they can start to do. Start to build a library in your home on melanin and learn as much about it as you possibly can.
Yeah, so true, so true. And many that you spoke about has been on the platform, like yourself as well, and still more to come because it is so much that we have to learn. Let's talk about melanin and the pineal gland as that gateway to our spirituality and making that connection. Can you elaborate on that?
Dr. Richard King, going back to Dr. Richard King again, wrote an essay in his African Origins of Biological Psychiatry. It's called The Importance of the Crown in Ancient Egypt, and it talks about the second sarcophagi, the second coffin that King Tut was buried in. And he shows a pictograph of the relationship between light and heat energy and the pineal gland, and that it in fact is a black dot. He calls it black dot. A black dot in the sense of a doorway, or a stargate, if you want to call it that, to the unconscious. And that the access comes by basically just attempting to meditate, close your eyes, and attempt to see yourself moving into this third eye, which is really in the center. We see many Indians that have blue and red marks in the middle of their forehead. Well, that really is their way of drawing the third eye. That basically is where it's located. And in his book, he shows you exactly where the pineal gland is located, in the third ventricle. And if you meditate on that eye, it literally can open up. And when I say open up, I mean consciously. It can open up your doorway to consciousness. Everybody has a different doorway to consciousness. And by that I mean it's pretty much located in the same place, but what will evoke and invoke out of that is different for every person, because the images that we have in life are different. So that when the melanin through the cerebrospinal fluid is percolating at higher levels, and you know that concept of when we go in meditation, you tickle or you percolate an area in your brain known as the shittite, which is sitting in this cerebrospinal fluid. It is where all of your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, and what you smell, they're all located in that central location. And it's like it's percolating, it's vibrating. And as you vibrate, you bring yourself to levels of consciousness, thoughts and ideas, your life before, your life now, your life to be. And you begin to invoke and evoke these concepts. You bring yourself to levels of peace and tranquility. And in those waters, if we want to call it that, in that cerebrospinal fluid, in that perfect feeling, you bring yourself to levels of ideas and consciousness where all is one.
Yes.
And our ancestors did it. And not only our ancestors, but those tortured on the plantations, they also did this. This is what allowed them to get to the next day.
Right.
So it's important that we understand that this access is there. And for everybody, it might take them a little bit longer. It might take them a shorter time. But the fact is we all can get there. And a calcified pineal gland, as related to me from some of the scholars, is it's like a healthy pineal gland is like a grape.
Right.
It's plump, it's thick, it's full of life, it has water in it. If you bite into it, it explodes. It's tight. A calcified pineal gland is a raisin. It is when the life, in fact, raisins are sun-dried grapes, to tell you the truth. They have had their life waters sucked out of them, and they're dry, and they're hard, and they're wrinkly. That's what a calcified pineal gland is. And so that the calcification is a hardening, and it's like the spirit of your thought process, of your life system, has been sucked out of you. And so you live in hatred and envy and jealousy. And sometimes, as African people, if we have gotten ourselves to such a low level of vibration, sometimes we